Hey everybody, AJ the one here. How y'all doing? And I'm doing fine myself. Today we'll be doing part 2 to What If Belle Carnell Was in My Hero Academia. So let's get started. So, the last time I had left off, Belle had just defeated Todoroki and Shoji in the battle trials, in the hero versus villains battle trials. And we're just gonna continue straight after that, as everybody else's battle trials will continue the same. As everybody else's battle trials will continue the same. And of course, afterwards, like usual, Uraraka and Ida would walk up towards Deku after the confrontation, or after the day ended. And of course, Izuku still confronted Kazuki. That doesn't change. But Uraraka and Ida would have still walked up to Izuku, but not far behind them would be Belle and Mina. The reason why Belle is walking over there is just because, he's interested in Deku and wants to be friends with him. And then on top of that, the reason why Mina is over there as well is because of Belle. She's basically following Belle. And then I would say Kirishima as well, but Kirishima is more of following Katsuki. He's like more with Katsuki. But I would say that Kirishima would appear for that day. Like this is the first time that they're over. Like this is the first time that Kirishima is actually a part of Izuku's little group. So anyway, everybody would of course get mistaken for Izuku's name, calling him Deku. After that point, Deku would explain his name, of course, as they would all understand. But a couple days later, as you know, everybody would, walk, talk for a little while. They would go on the train, just they would all disperse. Around 2 days later, Belle would be walking throughout walking in the cafeteria as it would be time for lunch. But then they have lunch. As Belle is walking around the cafeteria with his tray in hand, looking around for a place to sit, until suddenly he would get called over. As Mina would be waving Izuku over, as Denki, Kirishima, and Bakugo would all be sitting at the same table. Kirishima decided to sit with Bakugo. After that, Kirishima called Mina and Denki over, and Bakugo didn't care enough for him for him to decline. So now they're all sitting over there. As Belle would walk over there himself, and Bakugo would still not give a damn. While they're over there, they would all be sparking up normal conversation until suddenly would point at Belle's head. Hey Belle, or hey Belle. I know that in a world of superpowers and quirks and stuff, having weird features isn't all that wonky, but your quirk seems pretty normal, or at least leaves your body still pretty normal. So why do you have white hair? As when this question was asked, Mina and Kirishima would both look over, expecting to answer themselves, as Katsuki would have even stopped eating to look up to still hear Belle's answer. As Belle would have sort of laughed nervously as he would scratch the back of his head, as Belle would begin to explain that at some point during around junior high school, not too long ago, or basically at like the start of junior high school, there was a really big test coming up, and he hadn't studied for it at all. He didn't study for it. He didn't get any time to even review it. He didn't even know what the test was on. So due to this stress, so due to this amount of possibility of failing, then on top of that, the same day, one of Belle's, how would I put it? I guess you could say that is one of his cousins were sort of just, I would say that one of Belle's cousins would be living with him for a little while, and he would be completely stressed out trying to look after him. As I would say, like it would be like a smaller kid around like the age of 8, like 5 years old, right? So Belle is constantly have to look after him, clean up behind him while his parents aren't home, and while he's either studying or doing anything else, he can't because he's sleeping through class. So then on top of that, he's stressed out by his cousin, and then now all of this other stuff on school stacked on top of him. Belle's quirk would have activated, and since And since Bell's quirk is a little bit weird, it doesn't just enhance everything, it enhances the main thing. So if Bell is in a stressful situation where he's in danger, his intelligence, his strength, and his speed will all be enhanced. But if Bell is in a stressful situation far as work or just stressed out due to a certain emotion, then his quirk will still enhance that certain emotion or still enhance that certain emotion. So since Bell was so stressed out, his quirk, which mainly revolved around stress, would have amped his stress levels up so much where he had gained white hairs. When Bell had explained this, everybody at the, or not every, as Kirishima and Mina wouldn't be laughing at it, as they wouldn't really feel all that bad for Bell. Not to say that they don't care, like, oh man, that must have sucked. That must have sucked. I'm sorry for you, man. But Denki would be attempting to hold in a laugh, as that quirk would kind of be funny, or no, as that sort of would have kind of been funny towards him. But then after Denki started laughing. But after that, Denki started laughing. Bell would have pointed at Kaminari. Well, you don't have any room to laugh. Well, let me stop stuttering. Well, you don't have any room to laugh. Whenever you use your quirk, you just become stupid. Yeah, you don't got any room to laugh at me because my quirk just did what it did properly. As soon as Izuku had said this, Kaminari would have quickly stopped laughing and would have shut up. But after this point, as soon as Kaminari had shut up, another kid from behind Bell would have spoken up in a very smug tone. Do you mind you and all of your other classmates shut up? Your laughing's making everybody else uncomfortable. As soon as this was said, everybody would have looked up from what they would have turned to the voice, as they would all see a kid with the blonde hair and blue eyes. As when they would all turn around, Mina would have sort of said in an annoyed tone, "Who in the world are you?" Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. My name is Naomi Monoma, and my name is Naomi Monoma, and I'm from Class 1B. And again, I'll ask you and your friends to stop being so loud. When this would happen, Denki would sort of open up. Denki would have just simply said, out of, not really meaning to be any form of mean, "You're from Class 1B? You're from Class 1B? Well, that's kind of, when you're from Class 1B, that's kind of funny since you're coming over here telling us to shut up. Doesn't that kind of make us better than you since we're in 1A? As Kaminari would have just said this, as this would be the only sort of comeback that he could think of. As when that was said, Bell or nobody else would have told Katsuki that he was out, or not Katsuki, Kaminari, that he was out of line. Kaminari that he was out of line. Until Mona would have began screaming. Who do you think you're talking to? All of you and your UA trash are just the same. You're all arrogant. You're all arrogant just because you have the letter A in your class name. Just because you all have that letter A in your class name. All of you idiots and all of you. Yeah, all of you idiots are just the same. As soon as Monoma had said that, that's when Bell would have sort of stood up himself, staring daggers at Monoma. I get that what Kaminari had said or I get that what Kaminari had said had insulted you. But for you to call everybody else in our trash, for you to call everybody else in our class idiots and trash, I can't go for that. Take what you said back now. As soon as Bell had said that, Monoma would get a grin on his face as he would say, "Well, how about you make me? Well, how about you make me then? Or are you and your, or, oh my God, if I say or, one more time, okay. Or are you just too cocky, or too full of yourself to even think that you even need to waste your time with me?" As soon as that had happened, Bell would have balled up his fist, and would be ready to lunge at Monoma until alarms would blare. When this would happen, a third-year student would have ran into the cafeteria, yelling for everyone that they all need to evacuate the building because a villain had gotten inside. As soon as this would happen, everybody would sort of be sitting there in shock as an orange-haired girl who would have been quickly advancing behind Monoma would have yelled for everyone to hurry up and leave. For everyone to hurry up and leave. After some time, everybody would have been running around, or everybody would have been running around, ready to get out of a hallway, shoving and pushing, until Ida would have told everybody that it's just the press, and they all should just calm down. After this point, Ida would have still been made class president like in the original. After that, or one day later, they would have been announced that they were going to the USJ. When on their way, Bell wouldn't actually be wearing his. Would Bell be wearing his red? No, Bell wouldn't be wearing his red cloak. He would just be wearing his basically black clothing and his armor, or what little armor that he has. When Bell would be questioned by this, or when people would be asking Bell why he hadn't brought his red cloak, he would have said, well, since Bell comes from a hero family, or a family of heroes, he sort of knows about the USJ. It's a place where you all go to, or it's a place where you go to basically, it's basically like a rescue zone. It's a zone, or sort of like a rescue zone. It's a place where you have to practice rescuing people. It was made by 13 about 13 years ago. Funny enough, as when he had said this, Aizawa would be shocked and would have praised Bell for knowing what the USJ actually was. And after that point, C would have looked over at Bell. What do you mean? How the fuck do you do her voice? What do you mean a hero family? As when this would happen, Bell would have basically explained, or would have basically realized that he probably had said too much. As now everybody else in the car, or everybody else in the bus, would now be looking at Bell in confusion, as Bell would basically explain that his grandfather is the legendary hero Zeus. As when this would happen, everybody else in the bus would sort of freeze and pause and look at Bell in shock. As everybody else in the bus would scream, "What?" As to put it in example, Zeus, or the hero, not the actual god, just Zeus. Zeus is a very old, but very still powerful and well-known and infamous hero. To put it simply on how strong Zeus was, All Might would have been, so to put it simply, All Might has a bronze, silver, and gold age. Throughout all of All Might's bronze age, Zeus would have been number one hero. All Might would have fluctuated between 3 and 4, or 3rd and 4th place. When All Might got into a silver age, he would have constantly been fluctuating between 3rd and 2nd. And when he got into the golden age, when he was 50 years old, Now that Zeus was probably like, what, 20 years older than him, so like 70, and still a hero, but he would be second, but he would be a third hero. He would be the third ranking hero in all of Japan. At 70 years old, just to put it in perspective on how strong Zeus is, or yeah, the Z. His original name would have just been Zaltine Carnell, and because of his odd name, I would say that Zoltine would have been an orphan, so he would have just came up with his own name. I would have said, like, in the library of the orphanage, he would have read about Zeus, and he would have liked the name, so he would have named himself Zoltine. And then of course, I would have said that he would have been adopted into a family named Carnell, or last name Carnell. But when Belle would explain this, everybody else on the bus would be shocked, like I've already said, as they would all be asking Belle questions. Belle had only met his grandfather only a decent handful of times, as his grandfather was either always out working or off somewhere in some other foreign place. Never really known to anybody where he was actually going. Never actually known to anybody where he was actually going. After some time of people asking questions, they would have finally made it to the USJ. Now we already know how this goes. They all walk out the bus, 13 is there, she explains. I feel fat. I'm not fat, but I just feel like it. I eat a lot. But 13 would explain on how all quirks are dangerous, and this is a place that teach you on this is a place that teach you how to control your quirks so they can't be as dangerous to people when you're saving them. And then suddenly Kirishima will point out on how cool fake villains are in the center. Aizawa would turn around, and Belle, who would be paying hyper attention to this, like, what is that? What is that? Soon as he would see Aizawa's worried and confused look as he would turn around very quickly, Belle would already know that these wouldn't be fake villains. As soon as Aizawa had said that, Belle's stress levels would have went up instantly on how these are real villains. So because of that, Belle's intelligence, his worry, everything, or his danger meter would have just snapped up. As Belle's first thought would be to try and get everybody out of there as fast as possible. As Belle would turn around and yell towards Ida to quickly run out of the door. As Belle with this very heightened intelligence would have assumed that somebody might attempt to block them all. So soon as Ida would have heard Belle and heard the urgency of Belle's voice, Ida would have paused for a second, being hesitant, as Belle would have yelled for it again, but more demanding. As Ida would have quickly ran out of the door. As soon as Ida began running, a black mist would slowly begin to appear, as Ida would use the reciprocal burst and get out the door. After this point, Aizawa would yell for Ida to go and get the heroes. When Kirishima, as Kirigiri would say the same thing, hello to all of you hello all up-and-coming heroes. Look at this place, the USJ. Isn't it such a fitting place for All Might to die? Blah, blah, blah. As soon as it would happen, Kirishima and Bakugo would both jump up. Kirishima and Bakugo would both jump up to try and hit Kirigiri, but it would completely miss. As soon as it would happen, Belle would yell at Katsuki to shoot a giant explosion. As soon as Katsuki heard this, he would have grinned, as I would say it might have been a little bit hot in the bus, or even still. He might have still just sweated up a storm, as he would pull back on his gauntlet and pull the pin on it to shoot a giant explosion, hitting Kirigiri, launching it back some. As it would hit the actual metal on it or on his physical body, as he would be launched to the ground. Not knocked out, but very injured. As they would all be standing there, realizing realizing that Katsuki might have just taken out the hero, they would all run forward trying to get out of the USJ. But Kirigiri, using the rest of his strength, would have launched forward, teleporting everybody away, catching them all off guard. And I don't remember who I said Bell was replacing last part. I don't remember if it was Hagakure or Mineta, but I'm going to say it would be, I'm pretty sure it was, I forgot who it was. Right, Deku was with Ojiro, so he replaced Invisible Girl. So Bell would be in the same area as Todoroki. As while this was happening, in the landslide area, soon as Bell had landed, he would have looked around, seeing that he was in the rock slide area. As soon as he looked up and turned side to side, he would realize that he was completely surrounded by villains. Bell would have quickly sheathed his blade as the blade would have begun, as the ingrations the ingrations in the blade would begin to glow bright blue. Would begin to glow bright blue as Bell would get into a stance. With the blade in reverse grip, basically flipped upside down in his hand. As Bell would rush forward. As the other villains would lunge towards Bell. Bell would dodge out of the way of one villain, kneeing him in the stomach and using the blade, or using the bottom of the blade to slam, or using the bottom of the blade, slamming it into the, using the bottom of the handle to slam it right into the back of the villain's head. Slamming it right back into the villain's head, quickly knocking him out. As soon as it had happened, Bell would flip his blade upside up, as he would quickly block sort of a slice of another villain who had the ability to make their nails very sharp, or long and sharp. As Bell would block the villain, he would quickly spin his blade in a motion where he would launch the villain's hand back. As soon as this had happened, Bell would have lifted up his foot, kicking the villain right across the face. Right across the face. As Bell would quickly dashed under their arm, wrapping his own arm around the villains. As Bell would begin spinning to make the villain catch up some motion. As Bell would lean over, using the momentum that the villain and him had generated, he would slam the villain head first into the ground, knocking out the villain. Oh my god. See, after that, a villain that was completely made out of rocks, and another villain that had like a mask with two lightning bolts appearing out of the side. Actually, no, just to make it politely funny, it would have looked like Electro from Spider-Man, the old costume. Like the yellow and green, the sort of star electric bolt light mask. I would say it would be that villain. That's who he would look like. Or yeah, that's the villain. But not to the same level, not at all. No, I would say maybe. But either way, one villain would touch the ground as she would shoot off rock spikes, as another villain would shoot electricity forward at Bell. As the two types would be rushing forward towards Bell, Bell would easily just jump into the air, front flip forward, and of course putting his knife into reverse grip again as he would be flying down, as he would stab his knife right into the rock man, or right into the rock villain. Since the villain's skin was made entirely out of rock, Bell knew that if he would have stabbed him, it wouldn't do much damage. As Bell would have still stabbed into the rock slightly, but not enough to cause the man any pain, or at least any real damage. As Izuku and the rock villain would have went slamming into the ground, Bell would have unsheathed or would have grabbed his blade out of the rock villain and swung it at the electric villain. The electric villain, being extremely fast, of course, would have zapped backwards, basically moving as quick as lightning would have zapped backwards, dodging Bell's attack. The rock villain would be dazed. The rock villain would be dazed, but not out, as he would have grabbed Bell by his ankle, and would have picked him up by it, and would have picked Bell up by his ankles, as he would slam Bell into the ground, causing Bell to cough up, to spit up. Soon as that have happened, the rock here would have thrown Bell into the air, as the electric villain would have shot off electricity, constantly electrocuting Bell. As three other villains would be sitting back watching. Bell wouldn't really know what to do. Bell, while in this state, wouldn't really know what to do. Only thing he could think of was possibly somehow redirecting the electricity, but he just didn't know how. But while Bell was in the air, constantly getting electrocuted, his muscles would have tensed up more and more, as Bell's stress levels would of course be building up higher and higher. So Bell would be forcefully moving himself slowly out of the electricity, almost like sort of pushing off, sort of removing himself from it. As Bell would have fell out of the electric shock, as he would be falling towards the ground. Bell's body would smack against the ground as he would be completely dazed. His stress level was not going down at all. As the rock villain would have punched his hand into the ground, making his fist into rock but larger, basically making his fist larger as he would run forward towards Bell. As Bell would have quickly turned his head, looking back at the rock villain with a crazed look in his eye, the rock villain would hesitate as Bell would quickly turn around, punching the rock villain in the face, cracking the rock and earth that was attached to him as he would get sent flying back. Completely knocked out. As Bell would have picked up his knife and ran and would begin running towards the electric villain, as Bell would lift up his knife. As what is it called? The engravings in the knife would begin lighting up. As the villain would shoot an electric bolt. As Bell would swipe his knife horizontally, cutting the electric bolt in half, completely nullifying it. When this would happen, the electric villain would begin panicking, shooting off lightning bolt after lightning bolt after lightning bolt. When this happened, Bell would be cutting and slashing through the lightning bolts, constantly traversing forward, as he would even end up dodging a couple of them. When this would happen, Bell would get in close and close with the electric man, as Bell would swipe downwards, but the electric man, with his immense speed, would have dodged out of the way. Now, Bell is not at yet lightning speed. No, the electric bolts were about as fast as maybe electricity. Electricity and lightning aren't at the same speed. It depends on how fast the electricity is discharged. It's literally discharged out of the guy's fingertip and meant to go forward. It's not going to be the fastest thing in the world. I would say like an average grown man would probably be able to dodge or deflect it. So for Bell, who is trained, would dodge or deflect it easily. And then also enhanced, it would be a cakewalk. But for a guy that's actually as fast as lightning, Bell wouldn't be able to touch him. So soon as Bell would slash at the electric villain, as the villain would dodge out of the way, as he would rush forward at the same speed, covering his body in electricity, as he would ram his body into Bell, launching Bell back. as Bell would slowly get up, feeling his body injured and, of course, tweaking out since it's just been electrocuted so much. The electric man would rush forward again, slamming his body into Bell once more. As Bell would be flying into the air, the electric man would appear behind Bell again, ramming against Bell again, and again, launching Bell around like a ping pong ball. And after some point, the electric man would have kicked Bell into the air, as he would quickly get behind Bell, and you sort of like an electric punch and punch Bell. It's punch Bell, sending it back to the ground. The electric villain would land as Bell would be sitting there, or be laying there inside of a miniature crater, as the electric man would be laughing, walking up. "Well, look at you, not so tough now, kid." As soon as he would say that, he would launch another lightning bolt at Bell's sort of limp body. Well, it was against me, so he didn't have as much as a chance anyway," he would say, launching another lightning bolt at Bell's body. But all in all, you lost and I win. So, goodbye. As soon as he would say this, he would cover his entire hand would explode in electricity as he would be ready to plunge his hand into Bell's chest or into Bell's stomach. No, he would ball up his hand, being ready to crush Bell's head. As soon as he would move his fist down, Bell would have reacted, almost like without even thinking or moving on his own. It would be his own quirk sort of manipulating his body, since his stress was just so high. He's basically about to die. So his quirk is enhancing him up to the point of where he's basically dodging and moving without thinking. Almost similar to Ultra Instinct, but not exactly in the same way. As Bell would have instinctively moved his head out of the way, completely dodging the punch. As he would wrap his legs around the man's arm, and of course wrap his arms around it as well. When this would happen, the electric villain would be weighed down, as Bell would move one leg to or move one of his legs towards the ground to lift himself up, as he would use both of his arms and the leverage of his leg on the ground. And of course also he would set his other foot down to the ground, as he would use both of his arms to snap the electric man's arm. The electric man would scream out his pain as Bell would lift up his foot, kicking the electric man in the face, knocking him out. After this point, Bell would look over to the three villains remaining. One villain would just have basic just gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt with, I would say, sandals on his feet with all white socks. And then on top of that, he would have a very dark green sort of, I guess you could say, trench coat. It would be very thin. It would be made out of a very just soft, like almost like a cotton trench coat. Not as fluffy, just very thin. It's made out of like silk or something. The other villain would just be dressed like a very not stereotypical, like a very edgy villain. He would just have like spikes all over. He would have like an X strap. He would be shirtless, buff, an X strap across his chest, and on the strap would be nothing but a bunch of spikes on each part of it. He would have really big clunky boots, and on the top of the boots on the very top of the boots would be a bunch of spikes. He would have really big clunky wrist gauntlets or wrist wear, which of course would have spikes on them. Then on top of that, he would have a helmet like a gladiator's helmet, of course, with a big giant spike appearing off top. And then finally, the last villain The last villain would just be a bear. It would be a bear in a basic, I guess you could call it something like I guess almost like a sumo wrestler outfit. So, like not like the sumo wrestler that just has like a big ass fucking diaper. I mean, like some sumo wrestlers, like before the fight, would have on like a kimono. That's what it's called, a kimono. As the giant bear would just have a kimono. Boom, that's the word. I said wrestlers. I should have just said like Japanese, I guess, basic streetwear or something, or like festival wear. I said fucking. No, I'm pretty sure. Even still, I'm pretty sure that's just like almost like karate, like a gi. But either way, a kimono. I would have a dark blue kimono. As these three villains would all look at Izuku, as the gladiator, or the very spiky villain, would ball up one fist and make a flat palm out of another and constantly pound them together. All right, come on, fight us, kid. The green, or the villain with the green cloak would just sigh and put up both of his hands as sort of a green energy, would appear off of them. Just hurry up and make this quick. As the bear villain would have just began laughing. I would say that this isn't like a Russian accent. A Russian accent. I can't do one, but fuck it. Come on. Against such a puny child, we don't all need to go together. I don't know what fucking accent that is, bro, but that's the one I'm giving him. As Bell would be rushing forward with his knife, the gladiator villain would reel back his fist as he would shoot off a trail of fire, or I guess almost like a condensed beam of flame, almost like the mirror no me. As Bell, even though his stress levels are pretty high right now, he isn't moving without not thinking. That was just a situation where his stress levels went extremely high. Right now, it would be about as, to say that, almost like a mob psycho thing. So Bell's stress levels right now are at like a 100, right? Those are his stress levels currently. But when the electric villain was about to kill Bell, his stress levels went up to something beyond 100, like question mark. But Bell would still be thinking. He would realize that the gladiator villain would probably have more control over his quirk. So Izuku would have quickly dodged out of the way of the beam. Not Izuku. Bell would have quickly dodged out of the way of the beam as he would kick a rock up to his hand while running and throw it at the gladiator. While still running forward. The gladiator, not realizing that the rock was coming, it would smack him right into the side of the head while Bell was still rushing forward. He would throw his knife forward towards the gladiator, expecting for it to hit him right into the chest. Not killing him, but he would have thrown it with enough power to pierce his chest to get him once again pain so Bell can move in and take him out. But as the knife would be flying, Bell wouldn't be too far behind. But the villain in the green cloak would quickly put out his hand as the green energy would appear as a barrier would come up, blocking the gladiator villain. Bell, being shot, would have grabbed the knife as it would sort of ping off of the barrier. When he would grab the knife, the bear villain would have looked over to the other two. Stop, let me handle this. As soon as that would happen, the bear villain would have rushed forward towards Bell, swiping at his head. Bell would have dodged out of the way dodge out of the way, kicking the villain across the face. The villain, as Bell would kick with majority of his strength, as he would land back down on the ground, expecting the villain to be stunned, so he would turn his back to him. He would basically do like a full leverage kick. When he would land down, his back would be turned towards him, expecting the villain to be stumbled, like I just said. But when in reality, the villain would be completely fine. The villain would be completely fine. Didn't even flinch. As Bell would look back up in shock, the villain would kick Bell right in the stomach. As the bear villain would grab Bell and squeeze tightly. As Bell would begin screaming out loud in pain. So tiny, hero. Pretty sure. I'm so tiny, hero. You hit hard, but not hard enough for me. As the Russian bear villain would begin squeezing. Would begin squeezing harder and harder until his Bell's stress levels would shoot up again to question mark. As his strength would increase rapidly. As the bear would be in shock, as the bear villain would be in shock on how Bell is slowly breaking from his grip. While Bell had loosened himself up enough, he would throw his knife into the bear villain's face, cutting into his eye, or cutting into the side of his face where it would basically still injure his eye. As the bear villain would let Bell go, as he would stumble back and yelling out in pain. You bastard! I'll kill you. But before the bear could do anything else to hit Bell would run forward and grab the knife and pull it out of his face. Pull it out of the bear's face. As since it's a bear, Bell would land on top of his head and stomp his heel right into the bear villain's nose, causing the bear villain to get stunned. As he would stumble back, grabbing his nose. Bell would have jumped from atop the bear villains and sliced him across the chest. As Bell would do it again and again and again and again, constantly slicing up the bear villain until he would kick it into its jaw with such strength that he would get sent almost like a bowling ball back down the hill towards the other two villains. Which the barrier villain will quickly get behind the bear as he would lift up a bear, which he would create a barrier which would almost be like a hand, which would quickly catch the bear villain. Bell, seeing on that all these guys' quirks are very powerful. One has very great manipulation over fire, one has very great manipulation over the barrier, and one is a literal just giant, very muscular and strong bear. But with Bell seeing that he shouldn't waste any more time, he would rush forward again, as the bear villain wouldn't be completely knocked out. Or no, the bear villain would be dazed. The bear villain would be extremely dazed, but he would slam his hand into the ground, getting up. As the gladiator villain would put his hands forward, shooting a bunch of fire bolts towards Bell, as Bell's knife would begin glowing again, as he would begin cutting through through the fire bolts. As once again he would be cutting through the fire bolts, dodging and weaving out of the way, as he would get close and close again with the flame villain, as he was sliced downwards. But the barrier from the barrier villain would have blocked Bell's strike. As the bear villain would have came from the side, punching Bell in the abdomen, launching him back, bending his armor. Bell would slowly begin to get up, Bell would slowly begin to get up as the bear villain would be rushing forward. As the bear villain would throw a drop kick towards Izuku. Bell. Bell panicking would have just jumped backwards. Dodging out of the way. But as soon as he had jumped backwards, he would see that a glow would be coming from the side as a fireball would be rushing right towards him. Bell will quickly drag his feet across the ground, and try to jump forward, but he will be a little too late, as fire would singe his back. It would singe his back and also his neck, basically evaporating all his neck hairs. As Bell would what's the word? Not scream, but would yelp in pain. That's the best word I could think of. But he yelled in pain. As Bell would look over at the gladiator villain again, that he would kick a rock towards the gladiator villain, kicking the rock towards the gladiator villain. As soon as the rock had gotten close, he would see that the barrier villain would put a green hand in and would create a barrier. As soon as Izuku had done this, he would throw the knife at the barrier villain, thinking that he's caught him off guard, until another green barrier would just appear right in front of the villain, forming into a hand which would catch the knife. As the barrier villain would look over towards Izuku. As the barrier villain would have blocked not only the rock, but also catching Izuku's knife, and Bell's knife. As the barrier villain would look over, you thought you could fool me that easily? Trust me, I may be the weakest, but I'm the smartest out of these bunch. I know that you're just aiming for me, since I'm the one with the barriers. As soon as this would happen, Bell would now be panicking. On seeing how that he basically no longer even has a way to even trick or outmaneuver these villains. So at this point, all he could do is just dwindle them down slowly. Bell had just also lost his weapon, so now he needs to go and get that back. So Bell would attempt to begin to rush forward to try and get his knife back from the barrier villain, but the bear villain will quickly rush forward and slice at Izuku. And slice at Bell. Bell would quickly dodge out of the way, but suddenly getting a very powerful fist into his gut. As Bell would get sent into the air, not super high into the air, just at least airborne. As the flame villain would have launched flames out the bottom of his feet, or out the bottom of his big clunky metal shoes, and would have rushed forward and would have punched Izuku would have punched Bell right into the right in his side, launching him back again launching him even further. As the barrier villain would have quickly ran over, he would have seen like Bell getting flown off and would have zipped over. He would have ran over before Bell had gotten launched. He would have quickly created a barrier which Bell would have flown into, slamming his back into, would have slammed into. As Bell would fall towards the ground, but before he could fully hit, the flame villain would punch the ground. As Flame would have quickly rushed through the ground, running over towards Bell before Bell could even hit the ground. As Flame and Embers would have erupted from the ground. As Bell getting back some consciousness, Bell's quirk or his stress levels would have increased again to the question marks, as he would quickly use his arm guards to put him up, or quickly curl into a ball and put up his arm guards to block the flames. Not to the greatest degree in the world, but Bell would still be alive. but not in great condition, as he would fall towards the ground. As he would fall towards the ground, a little bit of ways from the hole where the flames had erupted from. As Bell's armor and clothes would be burnt and torn. His head and face would be bloody. He would feel some fractures. Some of his bones would be fractured. As some of his hair would even be burnt itself. Bell would be breathing heavily. Would be breathing heavily as he would slowly stand up. As the shield barrier villain would have quickly created a ward barrier around Bell. As the bear villain would have came up and began rolling into a ball, smacking Bell's smacking the barrier that Bell, or the ball that Bell was in, sending him flying into the air. When this would happen, the flame villain would have launched forward as well, grabbing the ball as he would launch it upwards towards the sky. As he would throw it down and shoot a firebolt at it, sending Bell down further. Basically, since Bell is already highly disoriented, basically sending him on something like a roller coaster. But as soon as Bell would be sent flying towards the ground, the barrier villain would have made the ball disappear as Bell would slam right into the ground hard. Slam right into the ground hard. If the barrier villain would have grabbed Bell's knife and would be walking over. Well, kid, I'm not too sorry about this, but either way, you gotta die. So, as he would lift up his knife and quickly swing it down or stab it downwards towards Bell. As of course, Bell's quirk would have activated again, enhancing his body even further. As Bell would quickly disarm the villain, breaking his arm, he would have quickly disarmed the villain, break his arm simultaneously, and get his knife back. As Bell would jump back, the flame and bear villain would have both saw this as the flame villain would have launched a firebolt towards Ezekiel in anger, as the bear villain would also be rushing forward as well. The bear villain would also be rushing forward as well. As the bear villain would also be rushing forward as well. As Bell, who would still be tired, would look over, seeing the flame bolt as he would slowly but still fast enough would deflect the flame, or would swipe at the flame bolt, destroying or cutting right through it. But the bear villain would quickly come up as he would slash forward towards Bell. As Bell will only barely duck under the swipe. Would duck under the swipe as he would look up back fully towards the bear. The bear would again punch forward as Bell would have sort of front flipped over the bear's punch, as he would land on the bear's arm, as he would stab into the bear villain's neck. Bell, knowing that, his skin is thick, it wouldn't kill him, but it still would do enough to disorient him. And honestly, even if it did kill him, Bell would care in the long run, but at this moment, no. As the bear villain would yell out in pain, as Ezekiel would pull out his knife, would have kicked the bear villain across the face. The bear villain would stumble back. As Ezekiel would rush forward to attack again, but the barrier villain would have deflected Bell's blow. The flame villain would have shot a fireball right into the side of Bell, would have shot a flame bolt right into Bell's side, searing the side of his body. As Bell would stand up, the bear villain would kick Bell right into the face, launching it back some. But so Bell couldn't go too far. The barrier villain would again put up another barrier, as Bell's back would slam right into it. The flame villain would rush forward to finally land the dealing blow. Actually, no. would rush forward. The bear villain would rush forward, landing a drop kick on Bell, hitting him right in his chest, as Bell would break right through the barrier, launching back some. As the flame villain would be rushing forward with his flame slow deal the final blow. Suddenly, a large wall of ice would erupt forward as it would slam right into the flame villain. When this would happen, Bell would slowly get up, but painfully, as he would see Todoroki with ice slightly covering up one side of his, or frost slightly covering up one side of his body. The two other villains would look over, seeing on how the flame villain had just gotten completely knocked or frozen. As the bear villain would rush forward. You may be able to do that to my comrade, but not to me. He would rush forward as Todoroki would just launch another wall of ice, as it would freeze the bear villain. But not entirely, as some of his face would still be showing. As Todoroki again would launch another giant ice wall towards the bear villain, the barrier villain would put up his hand as he would block the ice wall, causing Todoroki's and the barrier villain's or quirks to break, as the barrier villain's barrier would break and Todoroki's ice would break. As soon as this would happen, the bear villain would use all his strength to break out of the ice. As he would turn around and grab the barrier villain and run over to where the flame villain is, as he would begin clawing the flame villain out. He would grab the flame villain as he would pick up the two as he would run off. Todoroki would look over debating about going after them until he would see Bell laying down on the ground, completely limp, looking very dead. As Todoroki would run over, as he would be checking Bell's body, Bell would be burned, bloodied, and broken, but it was still alive. As Todoroki would cauterize, he would freeze over some of Bell's wounds to make sure they didn't lose any more blood. So he would pick Bell up and run back over to the entrance of the USJ, where not only a very injured Aizawa was, but so would be a majority of the classmates, until finally All Might would break through the door, seeing everything that's happened, as seeing Bell on the ground. All Might would again also get pissed, since he would I feel like Bell and All Might would have met before, since Zeus would have held some respect for All Might. He'd have been like, hey, come and meet my grandson. So I feel like Bell and All Might, they wouldn't have like a sibling, like an uncle, a nephew, or a cousin or brother relationship. No, they would just be like, oh yeah, we met before. We're cool. But All Might still feeling some form of responsibility over Bell, since he really did like Zeus, or I guess Zeltus. I forgot his name already that I made up. Zeltus, pretty sure. Yeah, it's Zeltus. So All Might would have gotten more pissed, as he would deal with the Nomu and the entirety of the USJ. After this point, would have went the entirety of the scene. Bell would be sent to the hospital, and sometime after the USJ, Bell and Aizawa would both get sent back. I would say at the same time. But actually not at the same time. I would say that Bell would have suffered under worse injuries than Aizawa. And nobody really knew where Bell lived. So they couldn't go over and give him the news that the USJ was coming up. Could have given news that the USJ was coming up. So Aizawa would have told that address to some of the students who would have volunteered to go over and help out Bell. These people would be Izuku Midoriya, would be Izuku Midoriya, Todoroki. No, I wouldn't even think. Even though with Todoroki, yeah, I feel like it would be Izuku Midoriya, Todoroki, and Mina Ashida. And then I would say even still like Uraraka and Ida just to check up on which one. Oh yeah, no, yeah, it would be like a solid group of people. It would be Midoriya, Todoroki, Mina, Ida, Uraraka, Kirishima, and Denki. As they would all go in to check on Izuku. To check on Bell. As they would walk up to Bell's house, Bell's house would be fairly large. Larger than they all had expected. As when they would knock on the door, the person to open it up would be a woman with black hair and red eyes. Black hair and red eyes. As she would look confused for a second. Until she would look down and see the group of students' uniforms, or see everybody's uniforms, and she would be like, "Oh, you're all from UA. What do you need?" As Mina would be the first one to say that they're here to see how Bella is doing, and she would say like, "Oh yes, come in." They would all walk inside as Bella's mother would make some tea. And when they would walk inside, seeing a fairly fit and tall man on the couch, he would have, I would say like sort of not white, but ash colored hair. Not Ash Ketchum, like actual ash. He would have ash hair with sort of with red eyes as well. With the ash hair. As he would look over to see all the students that had walked in, as Belle's mom would explain that these are all students that came here to check up on Belle. As Belle's mom would ask Belle's father to entertain the students for a little while she would go get Belle. As the father with a very booming voice, as he would grin very wide and put his thumbs up and say that it's no problem. And he's got it. As Belle's dad would stand up, standing at a very tall 7'2". He would have a very muscular build. His ash blonde hair would reach around to his shoulders. Very crazy and wild like. Really crazy and wild like. So you all are friends of my son. As they will also just stand there in awe. As the first one to speak would be Ida. Yes, we are, and we all wanted to just see on how Belle was doing, and also to tell him about the up and coming events at our school. I see. Well, I used to be a student at UA myself, so I can pretty much already tell what they already have going. So I can pretty much tell what they already have going on. But the sport, so I can pretty much already tell what they're gonna do. Let me guess, it's the sports festival, right? As Mina would shake her head, yeah. Ha! I knew it. But before anything else could be said between everyone, they would all hear clacking of wood as they would see Belle. As his forehead would be wrapped up in bandages. His arm would be wrapped up in a cast, as he would be as with his other arm, he would be walking around on crutches, as one of his legs would be also wrapped up in a cast, and the other one would just have bandages around it. As Bell would look heavily injured, as under his shirt would be wrappings basically all up and down his abdomen, and of course some spacing between it so he can bend his body. As everybody would look shocked and very concerned for Bell, as Bell would just put up his hand saying that he's fine. But when this is said, Mina would be the one basically looking after Bell the most. She would basically walk over. She would hug Bell too tight to the point of where Bell would sort of yelp in pain, which Mina would profusely apologize for. She would basically be the closest to Bell, rubbing his back during the whole conversation, as basically everybody else would be explaining about the USJ. They would all hear this as Bell's father would sort of be scratching his head, as he knows that his son obviously isn't fit for, fighting, but at the same time, he doesn't want Bell to just miss the USJ. Bell's mom is completely adamant on just having him not go at all, but Bell's father would just be very, sort of split about it. Well, I guess he could still probably go, right? As Bell's mom would look over at Bell's father, sort of with a confused and blank face. Now, why in the world do you think we would be sending our son to go and fight a bunch of other students while he's like this? Well, it shouldn't take him that long to heal, especially if I use my quirk. Or no, I'm sorry, not my quirk. Especially if you use your quirk. My quirk uses up my energy. Uses up my literal energy, and then on top, uses up my literal energy. So if I ever do it, I'll just be slowly killing myself. And then on top of that, Bell probably wouldn't even make it that far in the sports festival. As when this was said, the room would go silent, as Bell would sort of be having his head hanging down, as it's his mom is basically saying like she doesn't believe that he can do it. Until Todoroki would chime in. Well, ma'am, I have to disagree. I have to disagree with that. As they would all look over. While the USJ was getting attacked, Bell was completely by himself, surrounded by villains with a bunch of different quirks, as he would have taken down all of them, except for three villains that were giving the hardest time, which put him in this condition that he's in now. Which put him in the condition that he is in now. If he had managed to take down one of the villains before all three of them had ganged up on him, he will be completely fine and well enough for him to go to the USJ. But instead he got ganged up on. I believe that your son could definitely handle the US or could definitely clear the entire sports festival. But or at least if it wasn't for me. Or at least he would be able to or you basically say that, yeah, listen, your son could do it, but as soon as I would appear, he wouldn't be able to do nothing. He would get soloed. See, look at that. Our son can do it. You just have to have some faith in him. And come on. Just only about a week of healing. Just only use about a week of healing. That's only like what? It's only like what? An hour of your life? Come on, please. As Belle's mother would roll her eyes, as she would say, "Fine." As she would put a singular finger on Belle's forehead, causing causing sort of a green glow to go around his body. As soon as this would happen, Bell would feel a lot better. As he would stand, as Bell would sit down the crutches, he would stand up. But Bell was standing up too fast. His ribcage would still hurt as Bell would quickly fall down to his knees. As at this point, before even Bella's mother could react, Mina would already be helping Ezekiel up. As Bella's mother would have quickly taken notice to this, and wouldn't have said anything about it. She would just thank Mina. As basically to quickly move this along, Bella's mother would thank them all for letting. Bella's mother and father would thank them all for letting them know about the up and coming USJ, and they'll make sure that Bella's up and ready for him to come back to school and do it very quickly. After this point, Bell's mother and father would be arguing a little bit about, if Bell should truly go to the USJ or not, until I would say maybe Aizawa would have called. I would say they would have called the school, and Aizawa would have said that hey, your son signed up for the hero course. This sports festival is very important. It basically determines his future. If he does well, he'll get certain internships, and those certain internships will basically be like the way for him to get an evaluation on what the hero world is like when he does that, or get the evaluation of the hero world. Depending on what internship he did to, and depending on how well it was, he might get other internships and might do even better then. As soon as this had happened, Belle's mother would have basically buckled down and been like, fine, Belle can join. How long have I been recording? Not too long. As Belle's father would jump in joy, and so would Belle himself. As during the time, I would say, 2 days? During these 2 days, Belle's father would be working up Belle's father would basically be working out Belle to try and get him stronger than he was before, and Belle's mom would be using up her lifespan to basically be healing Belle. As to explain both of their quirks, Belle's father quirk would be the same as Belle's grandfather, Storm. His father has controls over all things that are classified as storms. So about hailstorms, rain, thunderstorms, literal tornadoes, typhoons, all that other such. Even snowstorms, blizzards, things like that. So some small manipulation over ice. He's able to summon and shoot out snow, lightning, rain. He's able to honestly manipulate water, create tornadoes, the winds. Just a very powerful and ridiculous quirk. As Bella's mom's quirk would basically be the ability to it would be called lifespan give. He's able to heal somebody by a certain amount of time on how much time she gives. So basically say that she were to give 1 year of her life, that person would get 1 year of healing. It's basically giving up her lifespan to heal somebody else. That's basically her quirk. And I would say at the same time, to hurry this up along, since I've been recording for a little while, Belle wouldn't fully recover. He would still have some minor injuries, but during the day of the USJ, his mom would just use the rest of the time to heal him up fully. As during over the 2 days, Bella's mom would have used up around a week of her life. Which since I'm going to say that because of how Inko's family works, she would have an estimate of 114 years. That would be her lowest. That would be her lowest to mid estimate of her lifespan, and even then, her family still doesn't know. How did she live for this long? Just to make it feel like that, like her husband isn't basically begging her to basically waste her life so she can heal her son, so he can become a hero. So, she would live for a long time. So a week would almost be like, eh. So like giving up like a minute, truly. But anyway. Bell would of course come back, and as he wouldn't be the top of the class, there would be Bakugo. Bakugo would say the same thing as far as the race. Bell would do good. Bell would come in fourth place. He would of course be, adjusted back in the class. He would hug. He would say hello to everybody. He would hug and say hello to everybody. And of course, I would say during the USJ, Bell's mother and father would both be there. Bell would end up in, I would say, Ezekiel would be first, Katsuki would be second, Todoroki third, Bell fourth. Boom. Actually, no, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it like Todoroki that was second in canon? So I think like Todoroki second, Bakugo third, whatchamacallit fourth, Bell. Let's see. Next up will be Cavalry Battle. But I'm going to go over that in the... no, I could low-key just go over the entirety of the... No, I can't. Anyway, this will be all. This will be part 2 of What If Bell Was in My Hero Academia. Hope you all like this part. This is AJ, the one signing out. Have a nice rest of your day.